I'm recording this. I know many of you got an email from me. I recorded yesterday's session. I'll also record this one. If you're anything like the kids and you ask a question, you're going to watch the video just to see yourself ask a question, which the kids do all the time. So again, my name is Mike Reedy. I've been at Prospect for 29 years. This is my 30th year in education. I taught at Lane Tech for a year and a half. I love it here. I will end my career here. I'll probably die here. This is by far one of the most amazing workplaces. I don't have a lot to compare it to, but if I compare it to Lane Tech, and it's a pretty good place to be. And obviously you're sending your children here, so you must like it also. This is, as I said, 29 years in education, 29 years at Prospect. All 29 years I've taught at least 2 to 3 sections of geometry. So I would consider myself an expert. I also teach calculus. So I'm on both ends of the spectrum. I have freshmen when they first come into the building, and then I have seniors right before they leave. So it's a very interesting spread there. It's interesting to see students that I have as freshmen and how they've changed by the time they're juniors in calculus. I have a checklist that I'm going to go through so I don't forget anything. We'll take some breaks along the way to ask questions. If you have a burning question that you absolutely have to ask, then just unmute your microphone and ask, because I can't necessarily see everybody. Otherwise, I'll give you breaks to ask questions, and then we'll end the meeting with a big question and answer period. So let's talk first about Zoom. Is this the first Zoom for anybody? So let's practice. Answer in the chat either yes, this is your first Zoom, or no, it is not your first Zoom. I'll wait. I'm assuming this is not, I mean, Zoom has become such a norm in our society that I'm assuming it's not anyone's first Zoom. And I'm also assuming it's not going to be your child's first Zoom. However, it will be their first Zoom with me. So one of the things I'm going to spend a considerable amount of time on is Zoom etiquette. And they're going to get bombarded with this from every class, from every teacher, from everything that they do. Somebody's going to want to talk about how to behave in Zoom. The only thing I can control is what happens in my 70 minutes. And so the rules that I have set up might be a little bit different than other classes, but that doesn't matter to me because I have to be with them 70 minutes a day. This is what I'm going to expect. And things I'm going to expect are no hats, no hoods. I did a lot of reading over the summer, and in particularly one of the things I focused on is what makes a healthy work environment. So I know that many of you are probably working from home, and you can, I think you'll find it, that you'll agree with me on that. I work better when I have a spot set up to work. So I'm not very productive when I'm sitting on my couch watching Netflix. So I've set up my office at home, and when I have to do work from home, I'm in my office. That works best for me. The same is true with kids. In the spring, well, let's talk about the spring. The spring was a weird situation. It was a nightmare for me. It was a nightmare for parents. Some kids saw it as a nightmare. Some kids saw it as a really nice break because they had that A they wanted, or they had that B they wanted, so they just checked out. That's not going to happen now. There's a serious amount of accountability here, and we're trying to recreate the traditional school environment as much as possible. And so in order to do that, students need to have a spot that they can consider their own, and not even consider their own, but a spot that they can work. Bed is not a good place to work from. And so I'm going to ask a lot of help from you to help your child find that work spot. And I understand that every home is different. And I'm sure there's homes out there where you've got 5 or 6 kids all trying to Zoom at the same time. But try to help your child, who's my student, find a spot, whether that's a desk in their bedroom, whether that's the kitchen table, whether that's the garage, a closet, the backyard, I don't care. But some place that they can set up where they can focus on what they're doing. going back to Zoom, like I said, no hats, no hoods. They should show their face on their video. I saw a lot of ceiling fans in the spring. I don't want that. I want to see bright shining faces. They obviously don't have to have their video on all the time. So for instance, in a traditional classroom setting, if Johnny has to go to the restroom, he would raise his hand and say, can I go to the restroom? They don't necessarily need to do that on Zoom. They would just simply stop their video and go use the restroom. What I'm going to be doing is monitoring how often that video is shut off. So if one particular student has their video off for a considerable amount of time on a regular basis, I'm going to have to address that with them and possibly you as to what's going on here. You all did a wonderful job of muting your microphones. I'm sure you've been in Zooms where 2 or 3 people forget to mute and you hear them yelling at their dog or watching something on TV. You wouldn't believe in a professional setting like Prospect how many people don't know where that mute button is. So they'll learn that and they probably already know how to handle it. I'm also going to expect things where if I address somebody, I would expect them to respond in a prompt manner, meaning they're paying attention. That's also one of the reasons why I'm requiring I can see their face so that I know what's going on. You also get to see things like if a student's always doing this or looking down, that's probably an indication they're spending a lot of time on their phone. The phone is a big issue for me. In my classroom, if we were in my classroom now and they were coming to my classroom, I have a phone dock in my room where students come in and they put their phone in the dock. It sits there in their view for the class period and then they pick it up on the way out. Obviously at home, I can't do that. But I would ask you, if you're home with your child, to make sure that the phone isn't a problem, that it's put away, it's out of reach, it's face down, just so it's not a distraction. I have 70 minutes with them every other day. We have a lot of stuff to cover and the phone can be a huge distraction. There's no reason why they need to be Snapchatting or TikToking or Instagramming or whatever other weird twisted things these kids are doing these days. I would also ask that, and I'll talk to the kids about this, but I would also ask that their proper name is on Zoom. So you'll see that mine says Mike Reedy. There is someone here that says iPhone. I'm not calling you out and I don't care. I just want to make sure that I'm going to have a hard enough time learning kids' names and putting names with faces. So if I can see their name with their face, it'll make my transition a lot easier. And I'll talk to the students about how to make that happen. And I'm sure it shouldn't be an issue for many of them. Okay. One of the things that we're going to do early on is spend a considerable amount of time on 2 things. Number 1 is getting them acclimated to the technology. And number 2, trying to come up with a method that allows them to get to know their classmates. Ideally, at some point after the first week or so, they're going to be choosing groups that they work with. In order to do that, I have found that students are more productive when they're working with people they're comfortable with. Random groups are a good idea for certain things, but overall, I find the most success when they're working with people they're comfortable with. So they're going to, early in the first week, they're going to do some speed interviews with people, figure out who in this class do I know, who in this class can I work with, who in this class do I need to stay away from. And so I've got a couple activities to help them with that. They're also going to need to, now some of the students might be coming in with a familiarity of Schoology and Notability, Zoom, Infinite Campus. My assumption is that everybody knows nothing. And so I'm going to take them from square one and they're going to hear a lot of repetition. They might come to my class right after their English class and they just spent 70 minutes in their English class doing exactly what I'm going to do with them, but I don't care. I would much rather operate where they're hearing the same thing over and over again and not leave anybody behind. That's going to take some time, but it'll be a slow transition, but we'll get there as quickly as possible. I have the advantage in my classroom of some phenomenal technology. I have a fancy smartboard in my room, so I'm going to make full use of the technology where I'll be able to Zoom and I'll have a smartboard that I can display. I can also work off my iPad. They all have iPads, and I'll be teaching them how to use their iPads, not only how to use it, but how to demonstrate their use. So it's not unusual for me to say in class, Tanya, could you show me how you did problem number 7? And they put their screen up on the on the Zoom for everybody to see. I'm assuming everybody has seen a screen share. I'm not going to take you through that because I don't really think you care, but they're going to care and they're going to learn how to do that. How to communicate, both for you and for the students. I know that I've gotten emails from my first session. Tons of parents are emailing me saying my kid's shy. I get it. I'm going to try to get them past that shyness. I'm not a big fan of calling people out, but I'm also not opposed to it. I will start class with a lot of randomness. I'll ask random questions. Like for instance, you can answer in chat, would you rather fight one horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses? Please respond in chat. Once again, that's one horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses. Okay, I'm seeing people start to respond. Ooh, split vote, I like that. Okay, so that might be a general poll like we just did. I might specifically call on somebody and ask whoever has the brightest color shirt on in class a question and have them respond with their answer. So the randomness makes sure that everybody's involved. It also keeps things interesting. In a classroom, you have a wide variety of students. You have the kid that would never say a word even if they burst into flames, they would just sit there quietly. There's other kids that no matter what question I ask, they're going to raise their hand, even if they can't answer. Right? You know, so what's it like to be a boy? And I'll have that one girl raise her hand and tell me she's going to answer that question, even though she has no basis for that. And then everything in between. And so one of the things we're going to have to establish, not only in a classroom setting, but in a Zoom setting, is how do we handle that? I would like to see the people that always answer less, and I would like to see the people that never answer respond more frequently. In Zoom, it's just like a classroom session. There's certain things that if I need to talk to an individual student, I'm not going to speak to them in front of the whole class. So it won't be unusual for me to say, you know, can somebody, you know, let's see, Mary, can you stick around after class? I need to talk to you about something. Okay. And then everybody leaves class and Mary and I have a conversation about, you know, last night's homework or whatever issues come up. The reverse is true also. If Mary needs to talk to me, she can say, Mr. Reedy, can I talk to you after class? Just like you would in a classroom environment. I'll stick around after Zoom and we can have a chat. I also have email. Email I would like to use as an individual basis. So if you have something you need to talk to me about, please don't hesitate to email. If there's and in fact, I'll offer this now before I forget. If there is something I need to know about your child, please don't hesitate to send me an email. I spend 70 minutes with them every other day. And if there's something that you think can help me, help them, then by all means, don't hesitate to send me an email. What I don't want email to be used for is small things like, hey, you didn't give me that point I deserved on question 3, it's homework. That should be something that we address face-to-face. I use the face in air quotes there because it's not really face-to-face, but you understand what I mean. As far as the parents go, our voicemail is still active. So if you call my number, I'll put that in chat, by the way, you'll get my voicemail because I'm not anywhere near my phone. However, the good thing about it is that voicemail will dump right into my email. So, even if you send me an email about some questions or you'd like to have a conversation, I'm not a big fan of conversations in email. I prefer talking to people, especially during this weird time where you don't see a lot of people. Talking to another adult is a wonderful experience. And so I will probably, unless it's something quick, I will probably just call you and have a quick chat instead of exchanging 35 emails back and forth. Okay, let me stop and take a drink here. If you have any questions, please unmute and we'll see if we can get questions answered about the stuff we've talked about so far. I must be doing a really good job. All right, let's talk about the class itself. First things first, they're going to need a calculator at some point in time. If they don't already have a graphing calculator, they'll need one. It's not something you need to order today unless you want to. It's not something you need to run out to Target. The calculator that we are recommending is a TI-84 Plus. There are a bunch of them out there. I particularly like the TI-84 Plus CE. There's also a silver. I'm putting this in chat so that you have a record of it. Unfortunately, they are close to 90 bucks. You can find some deals on them on Amazon, or Target has sales. I will tell you that it's an investment, but it's something that's going to pay off. I have students that have had the same calculator now through high school and all the way through college. And so at some point you're going to have to get one. I would say probably after Labor Day. We do a lot of work with calculators, and the iPad just isn't very conducive to using as a calculator because they're going to be doing other work on the iPad. This class, well, okay, there's no nice way to I'm just going to be honest with you. This class makes a lot of kids uncomfortable. The way I teach the class makes them uncomfortable for a couple reasons. First of all is that I don't treat this like a traditional class. By that I mean there are a lot of students that succeed following this format. They come to class, the teacher tells them what they need to know, they write it down, they go home and memorize it, and they puke the same information back to me on a quiz 2 days later. That's not going to happen. I prefer an exploration approach. My goal all year long is pushing for learning and understanding versus memorization. The students will get tired of me using the term if you're a memorizer, but it's probably close to 50% of these kids have succeeded in some aspects of education because they are good memorizers. And they get frustrated when I might be the first time they run into that wall. And that wall is something like, what's the answer to this question? And I'm not going to tell them. I might guide them towards an answer. I might ask them to look at other things. It causes some frustration with a lot of students. There are other students on the other end, however, that completely and utterly embrace that approach. But I just wanted to be upfront with some of you that your child might struggle a little bit with that. They come around very quickly, and it's probably not till the middle of September that I don't have issues with it. They learn the process. And it's part of learning that game of school. And just sometimes somebody changes the rules on you. Let's see, calculator I talked about. Oh, algebra skills. Okay, so a couple of years ago, we ran into an issue where students were coming in with a wide variety of algebra skills, depending on what middle school they went to, depending on who their teacher was, depending on what they covered, especially given what happened in the spring, things are going to be a little crazy. So we adopted an approach where instead of taking the chance of leaving a student behind, we decided we're going to teach them exactly what we need them to know. That might mean that some students are going to be retaught, but that's never a bad thing. So we'll spend probably the first month of class just doing algebra. We won't even talk about geometry until the end of September, beginning of October. That way, by the time we get to the geometry, where there is a huge emphasis on algebra, we're all on the same page. We've all heard the same story. They all know exactly what's expected of them. Let's see. In this scenario of learning from home, this remote learning, in a classroom setting, it's a little different. If this were last year, I'd be saying, telling you all the different ways that students take notes and keep track of things. Unfortunately, they're going to be on their iPad in Zoom. I think, and I had some experience with my Calc kids in the spring, that trying to take notes on the iPad while you're Zooming on the iPad is not going to be very conducive to learning. So I would recommend starting with physical notes. The old school spiral notebook that we all used in school is probably going to be the best way for them to go. And some will fight me on that. And I'm open to change. If a student can show me that they can stay in Zoom and take adequate notes on their iPad all at the same time, I'm all good. Whatever is going to work best for the kids is fine, as long as they can fit into the parameters that I've set up for them. And that's part of the early parts of the class is going to be figuring out what works best for them. Where can they work best? What do they have to have ready to go? And all those other things we've talked about. Let's see. Oh, recording lessons. So because of the technology that I have in my classroom, I'm able to record not only the Zoom, because obviously I'm recording this Zoom, but I also have the ability to record what I do on my smartboard. And so on days when we have a more traditional lecture, slideshow based lesson, I record my lessons and I post them and make them available to the kids. Now, why would I do that? Well, if somebody is absent, they have a lesson, they have the recorded lesson of what they missed in class. If they just simply get lost, we're moving too fast, they can't keep up, they can go back and watch the video. Sometimes people just have bad days and they just can't focus. I get it. We all have bad days. They have the video there to go back. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to record every video lesson. Everything that we do in the class is not going to be available, but things when they're in a more traditional lecture situation, which we'll do occasionally, I will record those and make those available. The other thing that makes kids uncomfortable sometimes is that I treat this like a high school class. And that sounds like a stupid thing because I'm a high school teacher, but some children get used to what middle school is like. And I use the term hand-holding a lot. And I'm not saying this is true of all middle schools. And if you're one of the middle school math teachers, I'm not insulting anybody. I just know that everybody does things differently. And sometimes there is a tendency to handhold. I don't need to explain what handholding means. I put an emphasis on responsibility. I put an emphasis on maturity. Along those lines, one of the things that a lot of kids are going to have to learn is how to advocate for themselves. I know that I can be a big, scary guy. I'm 6'2", 200 pounds. I have 2 full sleeves of tattoos. It freaks people out. And it takes students a while to learn that I'm a lot more bark than I am bite. Getting there with some kids is sometimes difficult. And especially for those shy kids, they don't want to ask questions. They would rather just take a 0 on an assignment that I screwed up and forgot to put in the grade book than say to me, hey, Mr. Reedy, what about that assignment from Wednesday? And so I'm going to work with them to try and get them comfortable to have those kind of conversations. Not only academic questions, but life questions or life problems. Hey, Mr. Reedy, I just couldn't do the homework last night. My blood sugar dropped real low. I couldn't function. Is that cool? And as much as I'm big on rules, I'm also big on realizing that there's exceptions to every single rule out there. And so I need to convince the kids that it's okay to talk to me. It's okay that if they talk to me and I say, no, sorry, that they have to live with it. Now, am I going to say, I'm sorry because your blood sugar dropped? No, absolutely not. But every situation is different, and I want them to be comfortable enough to talk to me. Okay, stop there for a second. Question so far? Oh, I'm killing it. Beautiful. All right, grades. In geometry, we decided a couple years ago that tests were not the way to go. We were finding that the tests were causing too much stress, adversely affecting too many grades. And so it was also taking a large chunk of time out of our curriculum. A test would take, a day to do the review, a day to go over the review, a full day to take the test. So there's 3 periods that we just had to give up to give this 100-point test. And if you're the kid that is having a bad day, you're done. And so instead of doing 2 quizzes or 3 quizzes per chapter with this big monster test at the end, we have found a lot more success with more regular quizzes. And sometimes those quizzes are 5 minutes. Sometimes those quizzes are 30 minutes. Sometimes they're a full period. Sometimes those quizzes are individual. Sometimes they're group work. Sometimes they're with a partner. I change things up a lot. You know, education is the only place that I can think of where you're discouraged from working with others. I forgot to talk about my family a little bit, so let me back up. I have 2 children. My son is a Notre Dame grad. He works for a marketing firm in the city. My daughter is a Indiana University grad. She works for Target at corporate Target in Minneapolis. And I have a lot of friends that are in business and different components of jobs. And I can't find a single job where they say, don't work with anybody else, don't ask questions. We in education have a tendency to do that. And I don't necessarily agree with it. So we do a lot of group work. We do a lot of partner work. We do a lot of individual work and then pair that with some group work on the same topic. So mixing it up, keeping it interesting. So one of the things that if they can't already do that, they're going to learn how to work with others. And I stress with them the big difference between working near somebody and working with somebody. So just because you're sitting next to someone or you're in the same breakout room, you're not necessarily working together. And that takes a little bit of education to teach them how can you use your partner to your advantage and how can they use you to their advantage. Okay. And then grades are homework and quizzes, big lump sum, throw it in the mix, divide by the total number of points, and out spits their grade. I'm sure there's something I've forgotten. So while I'm trying to think of anything that I forgot, I will open the floor for any questions that you might have. How can I help you? This is like class. So this is also why I don't do a lot of large group stuff, because when you put 30 kids on the same Zoom, nobody wants to be the one to talk. So we'll do a lot of breakout sessions where I'll put 2, 4, 5 kids in a breakout session and let them argue and talk and fight. And then I'll bop around from breakout session to breakout session. So you're saying I've done such a great job that you have no questions about math, high school. Oh, let me ask a question then while you're thinking. How many of you are first-time high school parents? Respond in chat, please. All right. You can almost tell you get that glazed look on your face, just like the kids do.
Hi, I have a question. I'm Sylvia, Jessica's mom. Oh, we missed the first 18 minutes. We couldn't log in. What did you say about calculators?
They should have a calculator probably after Labor Day. I posted in chat the ideal calculator is a TI-84 Plus. They're about $90. You don't have to rush out and get it today, but at some point they're going to need that. And they'll keep that calculator all through high school and probably through college.
Right.
Depending on what they go into.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mary, I read your comment in chat. Were you figured out chat? Have you figured out how to talk yet?
I think so.
Oh, there you go.
Did that work?
That's perfect. Now you're
Sorry.
a veteran.
Yeah, I haven't used Zoom before, so.
Welcome.
Oh, thanks.
You might be the one person in the universe that hasn't Zoom.
Well,
right now.
For my job, we used a different format, so wasn't exactly the same.
Can I ask what you use?
Teams.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so.
There's some speculation that when we all get into Zoom, we being everyone in the universe, that it's just going to implode and no one will be Zooming. So I'm always interested to hear what other companies, like my daughter at Target, they use all the, they don't use Zoom because they're concerned with the hackability. And so they use some other format because, you know, they're a Fortune 25 company and they don't mess around there.
Yeah, yeah.
Any other questions? Beautiful. I forgot to mention one thing. I did think of it. As much as I want to see their faces on Zoom, they have the option to change their backgrounds. You might not know what that means. They will. It should be appropriate, but it can also be personalized. If it was me, so for instance, here's your first trivia question of the day. I'm gonna stop my video and you'll see the graphic that I have installed in Zoom. The question of the day is, what is that? Anybody?
No idea.
That is a logo that Elvis Presley adopted. TCB stands for Taking Care of Business. And so I've used that for years because that's pretty much what I do every day is take care of business. So I'm going to encourage the students to have a picture so that if they do stop their video, instead of seeing a capital letter, we see their picture. Nobody wants to see my ugly mug, so I have the Elvis logo on there. And also an appropriate background. And I'll talk to them about what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. Okay. Anything else? Beautiful. Let me summarize here then. Everybody's gonna be okay. They're still gonna get into Harvard. They're gonna be okay. I'm gonna be okay. You're gonna be okay. I would say the biggest thing to think about is communication is paramount. Not only me to the students, but students to me to you, you to me. I forgot one. Oh, you to your child and your child to you. So don't be hesitant. You know, I raised 2 kids. I know how awkward it is working with teenagers. Don't be hesitant to say, hey, what are you doing in geometry? You know, what did Mr. Reedy do today in class? What did you do today in class? And if there are any issues, or like I said earlier, if there's something I need to know ahead of time, just shoot me an email. I'll put my email in chat here. By the way, for those of you that are new to Prospect, all of our email is the same, meaning first name dot last name at d214.org. Now, sometimes that's a problem because you got to know the teacher's first name. If you can figure that out, then you can send them an email. You could always go to the Prospect homepage and find, there's links on there to send email to teachers. But in general, if you know, for instance, that Konupke, who is the other teacher that I teach geometry with, her first name is Karen, Karen.Konupke at d214.org. Okay. Questions, concerns, anything, do not hesitate to reach out to me. I will try to respond to you by the end of the day. Sometimes those responses will be simply, I'm swamped right now, I'll get back to you, but I will try to get back to you within 24 hours. And like I said, a lot of times that will be a phone call. So if you get a call on your cell phone, don't freak out if it says Arlington Heights. I'm probably not going to try to sell you anything. It's me calling to talk about something, positive, negative, whatever. Okay, so before I end this, are there any last minute questions? Beautiful.
This one, just wondering what the class size is.
Ooh, that's a really good question. Hold on. Usually my classes are pretty big. I can give you an exact number. Let's see. If they are in second period, that is 26. First period is 27, and 8th period is 27 also.
Thank you.
Yep. So it's going to get a little crazy up in here. It's also a little crazy since I can only see 25 per screen. So I'll have those 2 students always hanging over there on the side by themselves. Okay, I'm going to stop recording then. I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your day. If you did ask a question and you want to watch the video of yourself asking that question, I'll make that available by the end of the day. You can show it to all your friends. You can post it on social media, just like the kids will do after the.
Mr. Reedy, I have another question. So since we missed the first 18 minutes of the meeting, how can I know everything all the information you gave during
Yeah.
that time.
Lost the opportunity. No, I'm kidding. By the end of the day, I'll have a video posted. I'll send another link out, just like you received
good.
about this with a YouTube link. Follow that link and you'll see the video. You can watch my bright shining face and get everything you need to know from the part of the meeting that you missed.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Are we all good? Have a great day. Stay out of trouble. I will see your kids on Monday or Tuesday. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.